So our hopes for this occasion was, of course, to keep in mind the appalling attack on Salman Rushdie, and to support him and by analogy all writers who are in peril or under threat. But we also wanted to celebrate the extraordinary range and power and humour and inventiveness of this really significant and also very brave writer.
Well, I think there's one thing I would like it to achieve, and that would be to cheer Salman Rushdie up a bit in his travail. I met him once. He won't remember, but it was at a lunch in New York, and it was all very busy, and I didn't really have a chance to talk to him, far less get to know him. But I admire him very much, and of course was shocked, as everybody else in the world was, on hearing about this attack. So I hope that this event, among other things, will at least say to him, look, we're here. We admire you, we value you enormously, and we relish your work, and we want you to continue.
An attack on Salman Rushdie is an attack on all writers. And all over the world, writers are being repressed and censored and silenced and indeed imprisoned and even killed. And why is that? That's because the imagination, the creative imagination, has great power and is a threat. The individual imagination is a threat to dictators and totalitarian regimes and fundamentalists.
It's very important at a time when freedom of expression is a diminishing resource to focus our attentions on it. Salman has done an extraordinary amount of work over the years for writers persecuted, imprisoned, fleeing. And since that terrible attack on him, it has drawn our attention back to this fundamental matter. Just about every freedom we enjoy, at some point someone had to write it down, think it up and write it down, maybe decades or even centuries before it was enacted. So freedom of expression is the coping stone, really, of the open society. An event like this drawing attention not only to the glory of Salman's work, I mean, this wonderful body of work that he's produced over a lifetime, but also the fact that he has become an embodiment somewhat of that freedom.
I thought it was splendid. I mean, the turnout was much, much larger than I expected, and of a different age group, which is very, very important. It was very young. One would expect that in a university. So this is a new generation for whom he's a different kind of figure. And the assault on him, the first fatwa, and then this recent tragic assault on him, which fortunately was not absolutely deathly, is a new reputation for him, a new aura around him, which it's interesting to see that so many young people turned up in solidarity with him.
From a witness perspective, I think it was quite phenomenal to see a lot of Oxford students and people, members of the public, come together for such an important cause, reminding ourselves why words matter and for the freedoms that we currently are very privileged to have.
It meant a lot to me, both personally and professionally, to be able to do this, because I think as a representative of postgraduates, I feel that it is our responsibility to see where literature goes. And as keepers of research of Oxford, I think that becomes our primary sort of responsibility, headache, burden, as well as privilege. So it's a combination of those things.
It seemed to me that it's very, very important as a principle. Whatever your difference of opinion, we may all have different opinions within the society, or writers have different opinions, but the principle that we should be allowed to air our opinions without being violated or truly endangered seems to me to be extremely important. But as Rushdie himself said, this is not saying the same as we're saying we're sacrosanct, or that writing is sacrosanct. This is not elevating writers to a position outside social responsibility. This is saying that the main social responsibility is that we listen to one another, we let each other speak, and we then form our own opinions and we discuss it civilly without violence.
It is our duty as writers to commit acts of language. We do this in all sorts of ways, particular to each one of us, but always with the awareness that our acts of language do not cancel each other out. They cannot eradicate nor kill each other. Rather, they lay next to each other in simultaneous existence like so many tilled fields, even if the things we choose to grow upon them are as different from each other as can be imagined.
Well, libraries are a physical embodiment of freedom of expression. It's perfectly appropriate, therefore, that this event today should take place in the Bodleian, ancient, venerable, wonderful library that has an openness about it. And certainly this new Western building you come in, you've got a sense that it belongs to the city, not just to the scholars.
I hope it will be a sort of marker for the public, to remind the public that freedom of expression is not something you can take for granted. It's something that is continuously and continually in danger, not only from governments, but from large corporations, from people who control the media, who control the social media, and can switch us on or off, it seems, like switching on or off a light. And to have your voice silenced without any means of making yourself heard is a terrible fate, a ghastly thing to do to anyone. We should all stand up for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the pen, freedom of the word. And this event, I hope, will remind some people of the importance of doing that. It's very appropriate that it should be here in the Bodleian Library, one of the great repositories of literature, of course, of the written word. And as Richard Ovenden reminded us in his introduction, a little act of heroism on the part of a librarian. We don't often think of librarians as heroes, but the librarian who hid the works of John Milton in the days when that poet was in great peril was a hero. And it deserves to be recorded and remembered and celebrated. So I was very glad to take part in this event for those reasons.
It's a duty of writers to work their particular patch of land in their own way. And the literary landscape created by Salman is one of the greenest and most fertile on this planet. He has always been a stern defender of his right to tend his corner as he sees fit, but even stronger than his arguments, to my mind, is his example. Many people in his position would have hastily planted a new, less provocative crop of words, or cultivated a forest of retraction. But as a stalwart member of this guild of writers, he felt his duty so acutely that he chose to stand in the middle of an open field for all to see, well aware he risked his life by doing so.